Washington is in panic. The dollar is weakening. BRICS countries are dumping U.S. debt, and even longtime allies are increasingly switching to settlements in Yuan. The message from the White House is clear. The dollar must be protected at all costs. But behind the loud speeches and tariff threats, fear is growing stronger. America is losing control over its main weapon, its money. For decades, the entire world relied on the dollar for borrowing, trade, and savings. Now that trust is melting before everyone's eyes. Over the past year, the dollar has already lost nearly 10% of its value, and demand for U.S. bonds is rapidly falling. From Asia to the Middle East, countries are looking for new ways to finance themselves without Washington's approval. While Trump rushes to restore confidence, the world is entering a new reality where dollar dominance no longer looks inevitable. Trump's Asian tour is no longer about trade as much as it is about defending the reputation of the American currency. This became especially clear during Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent's visit to Japan. Instead of urging the Bank of Japan to raise rates, he insisted only on stabilizing the exchange rate. A strong yen could finish off the dollar, and Washington cannot allow that. Since the beginning of the year, the dollar has already fallen by almost 10%. Investors around the world are pulling out of U.S. bonds, once the most reliable assets. The problem is simple. The fewer countries buy U.S. debt, the more expensive borrowing becomes. That is why every new measure from Washington is aimed at protecting the dollar, even as markets sense that stability is slipping away. The world is entering a phase where the dollar's role as the backbone of the global financial system is no longer guaranteed. A quiet but powerful shift is taking place in global markets. Countries that once depended almost entirely on the dollar for borrowing are now seeking alternatives. In the first 5 months of 2025, the volume of dollar-denominated bonds issued by foreign governments fell by 19% to $86 billion, the first drop in 3 years. At first glance, the figure seems small, but it highlights the main point. Confidence in the dollar is weakening. High U.S. interest rates and the falling exchange rate are making debt payments increasingly burdensome, especially for developing countries. Any fluctuation in the rate increases their debt load. The dollar, once a symbol of stability, is now more often seen as a tool of pressure. For Washington, this is a worrying sign. The lower the demand for dollar bonds, the fewer buyers for U.S. debt. For others, this is a chance to diversify. Some are turning to regional currencies, others are developing domestic markets. But one thing is clear: the foundation of dollar dominance, built on trust and accessibility, is crumbling. This gradual capital outflow is reshaping the global financial landscape, while China is building its own liquidity network through the yuan. Indonesia's decision to issue its first offshore yuan-denominated bond became a turning point for all of Asia. The so-called dim sum bonds allow investors around the world to buy yuan securities outside mainland China and completely bypass the dollar. And this is not an isolated case. More and more countries and companies are issuing debt in yuan. The volume of such offshore bonds has grown by about 8% in a year and reached 720 billion yuan, or around $12 billion. The